say, "May the 4th be with you." We were, of course, inspired by the iconic franchise and the day of celebration, so we're going to play a little game of 5-Star Wars. Here's how it works. We will compare 5 stars from this current cycle against 5 stars from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Last year's class. So get ready for some healthy debate. It's 5-Star Wars. Who better to get in on all the fun than the guy who helped rank all of these prospects, our director of scouting, Andrew Ivins. I hope you're a Star Wars fan because we are leaning in today. So let's start, how about at the wide receiver position? The number 1 player at that position in 2023 was USC's Zachariah Branch. We're putting him up against the number 1 wideout in 2024. That's Ohio State commit Jeremiah Smith. So Andrew, between these two, who are you taking?
I'm taking Jeremiah Smith, and I obviously like both these guys. Zachariah Branch, someone who was on my Greeks list last year, but these are 2 different types of wide receivers. I think Branch is kind of your prototypical electric playmaker in the slot, and then when you have Jeremiah Smith, he's that big outside wide receiver. It's funny, Chaminade Madonna, where Jeremiah Smith goes to school, and Bishop Gorman, where Zachariah Branch goes to school, they both played each other back in December in a bowl game. Branch, I guess you could say, opted out. He didn't partake in that exhibition. Jeremiah Smith did play. It was probably the worst game of his career. Chaminade Madonna blown out, only put up 14 points on offense. But I think when you look at the resume of Jeremiah Smith, you know, he's cousins with Geno Smith, who just signed a big deal with the Seattle Seahawks. He's a state qualifier and the 110 and 300 meter hurdles. And then you just put on the film. I mean, he makes extremely difficult catches look routinely easy. He can pull away from defenders, monster catch radius. He can block. He's the total package. So I'm going Jeremiah Smith. I like Zachariah Branch, but we're trying to project to Sundays and build a wide receiver room around someone. I'm going with Jeremiah.
Andrew and Emily, I'm really going to lean into this. I'm going with Zachariah Branch because he's faster than a drone racer. He's got more wiggle than BB-8. And Andrew, I'm surprised that you went with Jeremiah Smith because you're the biggest Zachariah Branch fan I know. You know, we've talked about you being a tight ends guy. Well, I thought you were a Zachariah Branch guy. I've said it time and time again that I think Zachariah Branch becomes a favorite target for Caleb Williams early on in his college career at USC. He can blow the top off the defense. He's going to be a really reliable pass catcher underneath. I think the only question mark you have about him is his durability and his size, but if you've seen any photos of him and how he looked during the spring at USC, you know that he's packed on the muscle, and the comp for him is Tyreek Hill. What better comp than Tyreek Hill right now in the NFL when you think about projecting out? So I'm going Zachariah Branch, Andrew.
You both make great arguments. Do you have something, Andrew?
I was going to say, I mean, Julio Jones is the player comp for Jeremiah Smith, so we're talking about 2 good guys right here.
I mean, we're talking about 5 stars, so they're all very good. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I mean, Cheetah is the comp for Zachariah Branch. Now, I think you bring up some good points, and I'm excited to see what Zachariah looks like, you know, this upcoming season. I think he's going to play. You know, it's a loaded wide receiver room there in Los Angeles, but he's someone that can impact the game as a returner. We saw that in the Under Armour All-America game. I think they'll find ways to generate some touches for him. And we talked about the bloodlines with Jeremiah Smith. I mean, Zachariah Branch, related to Cliff Branch, who won a pair of Super Bowls, was also a decorated sprinter at the college level. Again, 2 really good guys.
2 very talented players. Let's continue with the talented players. Let's go to running back. The top back in 2023, Texas signee Cedric Baxter versus the top back in this year's class, Jarek Gibson, who is uncommitted, but Texas also leads the crystal ball for his services. There's a chance that these 2 could be teammates, so tread lightly here, Andrew. But we got Baxter or Gibson?
Give me Cedric Baxter. It's a guy, you know, I just broke down the 2023 NFL draft. We saw 2 running backs go in the top 12. What do those 2 running backs have in common? I'm talking about Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. Both those guys as seniors ran for over 2,000 yards at 11 yards per carry there in their final prep seasons. Cedric Baxter didn't run for 2,000 yards as a senior at Orlando Edgewater, but he was on pace. He in 4 of his first 6 games went over the 200-yard mark, got dinged up a little bit, and didn't finish out the season. But I'm a big believer in Baxter. He's a guy that can get it done in between the tackles. He can catch the football out of the backfield. There's one time this guy was a wide receiver. When I first went to his school, the coaches introduced him to me and said he was a safety. He can move. He can do it all. And I think I'm cheating here a little bit because we saw Cedric Baxter in Texas's spring game, and he was awesome. So I just like the body of work from Cedric. He finished as a 5-star for us. We'll see where Jarrett Gibson ultimately finishes in the 2024 rankings. But I think Cedric Baxter has a chance to hear his name called in the first round of the NFL draft one day.
Yeah, the issue right now, right, is snaps. If they both end up in Austin, and the crystal ball right now is on Texas for Jarrett Gibson as well. But give me Jarrett Gibson because I feel like he's more explosive than a Death Star. The way that he's able to do things out in the open field, the burst that he has when he attacks the holes, and the way he fills out gaps is really impressive. And I think if he does end up at a place like Texas, which Steve Sarkisian has been known to really utilize those pass-catching running backs, I think the potential and the upside is through the roof. So give me Jarrett Gibson, and you can take Cedric Baxter.
I like it. Let's talk the big guys. I'm excited to see who Blair compares these guys to. Let's go to the offensive line. The top tackle in 2023 was Alabama's Caden Proctor. This year, it's Brandon Baker, and his recruitment is wide open. In the battle between Proctor and Baker, Andrew, who are you taking?
I feel like I missed the pre-production meeting where you guys said we needed all like Star Wars comps. I'm a little upset I wasn't a part of that. I'm going Caden Proctor. You saw the video right there. Shout out to the producers who pulled that thing. Caden Proctor was on my freaks list, right? And we know we loved him because of his raw power, and a lot of it was that video. But as the recruiting process went on, I fell in love with Caden Proctor, saw him or watched his state title game performance. I thought he was excellent there. And then we saw him in San Antonio at the All-American Bowl, and he was excellent. There's not a lot of big bodies like him that move like that. He's in control. He's excellent with the kick step. I like Brandon Baker. I just don't think Brandon Baker is the type of athlete that Caden Proctor is right now. And Caden Proctor, he looked like he was headed to Iowa, which just had a bunch of guys drafted. He ends up flipping late in the process to Alabama, which just had a bunch of guys drafted. And I think Caden Proctor is going to have a chance to push for playing time here in 2023. The Crimson Tide needs some help up front on the offensive line. Caden Proctor, his arrow's still pointing up, but he seems to be well ahead of the curve. So I like Caden Proctor. Brandon Baker, really good player as well. Not sure he's a true tackle, but he's good as well there at Mater Dei in California.
A lot of positional versatility, Andrew, with Brandon Baker. I feel like he could play inside. He could play one of those tackle positions. I think he's just really steady and really reliable. Maybe, I don't know, the Millennium Falcon kind of comes to mind, right? Maybe something that's not super flashy or super athletic, but you know that you can trust the Millennium Falcon to get you through the day, and that's what Brandon Baker does. He keeps Elijah Brown, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, at Mater Dei. He keeps them upright most of the game, and they're facing really tough teams last year. Bishop Gorman, St. John Bosco twice, that tough Trinity League schedule, and Brandon Baker seemed like every week was getting better and better. So I like Brandon Baker. I like his potential at the next level. I love what he can do either inside or outside, depending on the scheme or depending on the need. So I'm going to go with Brandon Baker on this one.
I like it. Andrew, if it makes you feel better, I think Blair is kind of going rogue here, which I absolutely love. This was not something that we planned.
Will Fong had props. He's got two. I know he's got kids at home, but he's got 2 lightsabers. I got a hockey stick right here. That's all I got, right? Playoff hockey, but I do not have lightsabers. Wow.
That Steve has young children, so that totally makes sense. Producer just pointed out to me in my ear. He's going Rogue One, so let's just throw in another Star Wars reference there. But let's wrap it up here with some defensive linemen. You got Alabama's Keon Keeley versus Elijah Rushing. Now, as we mentioned earlier on the show, Rushing is considering Notre Dame, Oregon, Tennessee, among others. Andrew, Keeley or Rushing?
I'm going with the Viking. Is there any Vikings in Star Wars? I'm trying to go through my database here. I'm a huge fan of Keon Keeley, and I think if you look at Elijah Rushing and Keeley right now, so we're talking spring before their senior seasons, I think Keeley is much further along than Elijah Rushing. And that's a little bit scary because I think Keeley took a major step developmental wise as a senior. And then by the time we saw him at the All-American Bowl, he was a completely different player. So we're talking about a guy that's already ahead of Rushing before their 12th grade years. And then in the prep finale there in San Antonio, I mean, he was an animal off the edge. This is a guy that can transition speed to power. He's long. He has a knack for batting balls down at the line of scrimmage. Was going to head to Notre Dame and play for Marcus Freeman, ends up flipping to Alabama. I think that he could have a Will Anderson type of impact up front in the SEC. So I'm going Keon Keeley, the Viking, the guy who has been to Norway 12 times. Also, I think sang in the choir. He is quite the story. And between the ears, man, he has all of it. Off the field, he's like a young Luke Skywalker, right? He's always, yeah, I got one. He's always looking to learn, and I think that's going to be the difference for him, right? He wants to be really good, and he's going to a program where they can churn you out and get the most out of you.
Andrew, I don't know if there is a Viking in the Star Wars universe, but there is an evil empire, and that's who I think Keon Keeley will be playing for this fall. So give me Elijah Rushing. This is a player with all the upside in the world physically, about 6'6", 250, has that quick first step. He's doing boxing as a side workout to improve his hand usage. He's doing track to improve that burst. And when you think about him as a recruit, he would give a lot of these schools a cornerstone of a defender up front. You think about the schools that he's considering. Arizona, he would be the hometown hero. At Notre Dame, he would be kind of that next in line. They just had Isaiah Foskey drafted. Tennessee, we talk a lot about their offensive playmakers that they've been able to land on the recruiting trail. Well, he would be a key component of what they want to do on the defensive side of the ball. And then you think about some of these other places that he's considering. Washington, it just seems like he would be able to give these teams a new hope. So give me Elijah Rushing.
Well done, both of you. Andrew, thank you for playing along and joining in on the fun. We appreciate it.
I'm waiting for next year. I'm going to watch all the movies, right? I'll be ready to go with my Star Wars comps for these 5 stars.
I love it. Start now because there are many, many movies for you to get through. But
and I'll have a lightsaber as well. I'll get some props.
I love it. Just pop on Amazon. I'm sure they have that there. Thank you. When you're not going to be watching the movies, you're going to be on the podcast. Listen to the 24/7 Sports Football Recruiting Podcast hosted by Andrew Ivins and Cooper Patagna. You got episodes dropping in your feed every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts.